Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the program. Today we're going to go back and talk about Denisovans and how we have more information to go by in terms of what they may have looked like. Although it's very, very minuscule, it's still something, and I think it's worth mentioning in an episode. One of the finger bones that they discovered in Denisova cave, apparently there's this pretty long story that I won't get into too much detail about, but the finger bone that they sequenced the mitochondrial DNA from back in 2010, well, there was another piece of that finger bone that got sent to a different lab. From there, they were able to determine what the finger may have looked like, and long story short, they had slimmer digits than Neanderthals. Neanderthals had more of a thick bone structure in their hands. And they surmise that the reason for that is because of their living conditions. It was more of it's not an evolutionary thing more than it's a fitness thing. So generations and generations of Neanderthals were working extensively with their hands, and also it had to do with the climate and all these other factors that led to them having a more bone density in that area. Whereas with Denisovans, their hands would have looked more like ours, Homo Sapien hands. It's a pretty interesting story, and this analysis again, it's not groundbreaking, but it's definitely something that is now confirmed in the record that we can go back to whenever we need to down the road. This little finger I'm talking about is the tip of the right hand little finger, which was separated from the rest of the finger bone after it was excavated 11 years ago. A digital reconstruction of the complete finger bone reveals that the Denisovans' fingers are much more similar to modern humans. Basically, her team sequenced DNA from the missing fragment to show that it matched the rest of the fingertip bone. So, a little bit more backstory. So, that bone that was sent to another lab, they never recovered it. So, they don't know what happened to it. It got lost. It got buried underneath something. I don't know how that happens. It doesn't go too much into detail about that. They were able to that missing fragment, and then they came to their conclusion. It's not going to, like she says, it's not going to revolutionize our knowledge of Denisova morphology, but it adds a little piece. And this is a paleoanthropologist from the University of Toronto. Like I mentioned earlier, they decided that when they made that discovery at Denisova cave, they divided the bone to send the pieces to two labs to see whether DNA could be extracted from either half. One was sent to Svante Pääbo, who was the guy who was from Max Planck Institute, and he's the guy who sequenced the mitochondrial DNA in 2010. After they published the DNA, part of the reason why they published it so quickly was because of this competing lab, that they didn't want to be the second one to produce the results. So that's why it kind of came out expressly. And then again, these studies show that the Denisovans were a group of extinct hominins, and they probably lived across Asia more than 30,000 years ago. And here's a piece of the bone that was sent to Germany. Now, there's another piece to this that they have yet to recover, but they reconstructed through technology and like laser imaging and stuff like that. And since then, they found the hybrid that I did a video about, and they found a bunch of other stuff, and jewelry. But so far, this little pinky finger fragment has yielded the most data so far. Again, Geigel, he's the other guy. He hoped to obtain nuclear DNA from the fossil. It's unclear whether they did or not, but they did sequence the mitochondrial genome of that. I may have misspoke earlier and said that they reconstructed the nuclear DNA. I don't think that's the case. I think they set out to do that. But right, that's it. Geigel set out to do that, but he sat on the data for years, and then again they were only able to sequence the mitochondrial genome, but not the nuclear genome. And then they reconstructed the digital fragment of the finger, that the bone was slim and more like the bones or the fingers of modern humans. And again, what does this mean? Well, it could possibly mean that Denisovans probably more or less looked and maybe even sounded like us. Maybe they had the elongated heads like some people are very insistent about, or maybe that could be another offshoot of humans that aren't Denisovan but maybe closely related. But either way, this little piece of information is no longer speculation. A lot of them must have had slimmer digits in comparison to Neanderthals. And then there are a few other Denisovan remains that have been discovered, including large molar teeth. Tend to not resemble those of modern humans. So again, they might have looked really goofy as well. They might have had bigger jaws and bigger molars and stuff like that. But their hands must have looked like ours. So we don't get the full picture yet. It's kind of like 4 blind men touching different parts of the elephant. But still, we know for sure that their fingers looked a certain way. The slender shape of the Denisovan finger also suggests that Neanderthals' burlier fingers might have evolved as a result of strenuous use of their hands. So yeah, that part, again, we're only going by that one hybrid. So that maybe the burly fingers of the Neanderthals aren't a trait that get passed down. Maybe it's more of like a use thing, again, strenuous use, continuous use. Again, we don't know because we only have so many specimens to work with. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. I thought this was a really interesting tidbit to just make it into its own video. There's not really much else to talk about on this end, although there are rumors of another Denisovan site being discovered, but nothing's been released as of yet, so I'm keeping posted on that. There's also more stuff that might be coming from Southeast Asia around the Philippines, and perhaps more light shed on one of the unknown confirmed hominins, but again, unknown DNA strands. There might have been some more things unearthed in regards to that, in terms of fleshing that out and making that more clear. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think this slender finger thing is anything? Do you think it's not even a big deal? Or are you more like me, where you think, yeah, it's not a big deal, but it could be a big deal in the future, or it could answer some other questions that have yet to been asked down the road, that it may become relevant perhaps closer than we think, in closer time than we think. Anyway, leave a comment, and I'll talk to you guys later.